What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Today we're taking a look at my favorite underdog picks for week one, coming off a nice Thursday night win. So hopefully we can carry that momentum into the weekend games. Gonna structure this video a tad differently than last season. We're gonna have two weekly lineups, one that's a little bit more likely to hit somewhere from like 3x to like 7 or 8x, and then one that's pretty unlikely, but it's really fun to go for. It's gonna be over 20x. This week's is 50x. We're putting $25 on the first one every week, $5 on the second one. We will see where we're at the end of the season. And then after that, of course, I like all the picks in those ones, but then we'll go over individual picks afterwards, so you can do whatever you want with those. So first lineup, Rashid Shaheed, higher than 39.5 receiving yards. Travion Henderson, higher than 2.5 receptions. And then Xavier Legette, higher than 37.5 receiving yards. This one comes in at 4.86x with no promos added. So $25 will turn into $121.50 if it hits. Shaheed, I liked him earlier this week. So his initial projection underdog was 31.5. That was my number one on the week. Hopefully a lot of you took that. It seems like you did, because now it's up to 39.5. Of course, I'm including him in the video, so I think it's still good. Of course, 31.5 was better. Olave and Shaheed are going to combine for such a massive target share that, yes, it's a bad offense. We think. Again, week one is where we learn a lot. So we think a lot of things going into week one, and then week one happens, and we realize how much we didn't know. Who knows? Kellen Moore could go in there, play super fast, implement a really good scheme, and we still know that it's not like some random wide receiver on this team is going to launch up to a 30% target share. We know it's Olave and Shaheed. That is a guarantee. And maybe this offense isn't great, but isn't horrible. They're playing in a dome. They're playing an Arizona defense that I do have as a negative, meaning like they're a good defense, but we know that they're not Denver. We know that they're not one of the best defenses in the league. They're not, Chicago's really good defense. Minnesota, I don't really want to be attacking them. Arizona is still not some like superpower, super house on defense, right? So I think we can get there with, this Olave Shaheed combination. I think Shaheed is the one that's a little bit more likely to hit for a big play and really get there quicker. I do think Vele, as the season goes along, is going to mix in. I mean, they gave up a lot to get him. You would think they implement him pretty heavily into the game plan, but because they acquired him so late in the offseason, I feel very confident projecting him for a low snap share to start the season and then to see him ramp up as it goes on. So Shaheed higher than 39.5 receiving yards. He's done that in 6 of his last 9 games played. And if Vele is limited, if we're expecting still Arizona to jump out to a lead in this one, then they're going to need Shaheed to go higher in this projection, or else they don't have a prayer in this game. Right now, I'm projecting Shaheed for a 17% target share and even downgrading the matchup because Arizona did limit yards per reception to wide receivers last season. Even doing that, I'm projecting around 50 receiving yards for Shaheed. And again, I'd be surprised if we got this game script wrong. We get a lot of things wrong in week one, but it would be a little bit shocking if New Orleans got up quickly, basically pulled the last season where they score like 44, 47 points over the first 2 weeks. It would be shocking if they balled out, did amazing. Arizona can't keep pace, and then we just get a million Alvin Kamara runs in the second half. That's probably not going to happen. It's not a guarantee that it doesn't, but it's probably not going to happen. More likely that Arizona jumps out to a lead, that it's the Saints playing from behind. It's a lot more likely we get that sort of game script. So that's what I'm thinking this week. Again, if we're wrong here, though, it's that the offense looks better than expected, which is good for us. With Travion, yes, there's some worry about him being a rookie, as I talked about on Thursday. Sometimes we get a little bit too excited about these rookies' role early in the season. And even when we're right on the talent or right on the roll towards the end of the year, early on, we can over-project them. But Stevenson missed a good chunk of time in camp, so I'd be a little bit more worried if Stevenson looked great in camp. He was always out there. Stevenson straight up wasn't playing for a lot of camp, so Henderson got a lot more time with the starters. He was with the starters in the preseason. We also know that he's the better pass catcher. He's the better blocker. That's something that normally limits the role for rookies early on. Most rookies are really bad in pass protection, and so if they don't win the early down job, You can see them be inactive like Jaden Blue was to start, like some others probably will be in week 1. And until they grow as a pass protector, until they maybe earn that like 1 or 2 job on early downs, we're going to see a lower role for them than they'll have mid and later in the year. But we already know Travion has won the passing down job, so we know he's going to be out there in that role. We know he's live to rack up a lot of receptions. I don't feel super confident in projecting the exact game script here, so I'm not saying that New England's going to like fall behind, have to throw the ball a ton in the second half. I don't really know, but as long as they don't jump out to like a multi-score lead, we do know that this offense is going to throw running backs at a very high rate. And so I feel really good about Travion hitting 3 receptions. Next up, Leggett, last one in this lineup, 37.5 receiving yards, has to go higher than that. I like the potential of this game. Carolina at Jacksonville, I think it has shootout potential. I think both defenses leave a lot to be desired. I definitely think the Jaguars offense is going to look good this season. The Panthers traded away Adam Thielen. They lost Jalen Coker recently. So even though they're replacing them with Hunter Renfrow, I do think Renfrow is purely slot, and Leggett is going to be out there every single play, should command a fairly strong target share. I'm not worried about Tet. I think you play him this week. I'm playing him in the one league that I have him, but it is still his first game in the NFL. Brian Thomas Jr. was awesome last year, right? Like, he set the world on fire. He was fantastic. You would love to take the stat line of Brian Thomas Jr. last year, put it on Tet, and you've got it, right? That's an amazing pick, an amazing outcome for that pick. 87 receptions, nearly 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns. But even Brian Thomas Jr., weeks 1 and 2, had 4 targets in each week. Those were tied for his second lowest on the season. So there is still a chance that Tet goes out there, has an unbelievable rookie season, and only gets 4 or 5 targets this week. And that Leggett is the one that gets off to a strong start. And so I like higher on his underdog projection. Again, 37.5 receiving yards. So that is the more likely lineup. But how about the 50-1? You all know I like Ricky Pearsall, right? I'm a Ricky Pearsall stan. He's one of the players that I feel very confident in this season. And you know, I think Ken Walker is just going to be unbelievable when healthy this season. I think a top 10 running back. I think he can be a top 5 running back in fantasy when healthy. And he's healthy this week. So for this one, we need Ricky Pearsall at least 100 receiving yards and Ken Walker at least 100 rushing yards. That's it. Even with no promo, which again, I can promise you there will be a free square. There's going to be boosts. Like, there's going to be promos when you go into the lobby for week 1. But even applying absolutely none of that, no 50% profit boost, no free pick, $5 will turn into $250 if this hits. And I like the correlation. Ideally, Ken Walker hits first. It can still obviously happen if Pearsall goes out there, has a 60 or a 70-yard reception, really gets things going, and it puts Seattle back onto the field. As long as that doesn't put Seattle down by 2 or 3 touchdowns, right? You can still have them. They're going to want to establish the run. They're going to want to go run heavy. So you can still have them running the ball, and that just gets them back on the field quickly. But ideally, if Ken Walker can bust off a long run early on, not only does that make it a lot more likely that Ken Walker hits 100 yards, but that'll put San Fran back on the field, and it will launch them into a more pass-heavy game script. And we know this is a concentrated offense, right? I can name 4 players that are going to get, 85% of the workload this week. McCaffrey, assuming the calf is good. As of recording this, I'm not 100% sure, but honestly, if he misses the game, if he's limited anyway, it just helps Pearsall. But McCaffrey, I'm expecting to still be fine. McCaffrey, Kittle, Pearsall, and Juwan. That's basically every single touch on offense. And to me, like, I think Juwan is going to steal a lot of workload, like, throughout the season. Honestly, at times it might be annoying how random it is, but I don't think in week 1. Like, I really just don't think with how much time that Juwan missed this offseason, whether it was a real calf injury or not, he was not practicing in camp until very recently. And so, I think he's going to be out there for, not 100% of snaps, but he probably is going to be out there for like 70% of the snaps. It doesn't mean that Shanahan needs to feature him. Pearsall has been crushing it all summer. He's been the one that's been out there. He's been the one that's been practicing while they're installing their week 1 game plan. I think one of Pearsall or Kittle goes off. And when I say go off, like I think goes to 110, 120, 130 yards this week. And we get a much better payoff if Pearsall is the one that does it. He has a lower projection on Underdog by like 20 or 25 yards. And so if we want to get to 50x in this one, it's better doing Pearsall than it is doing George Kittle. Also, Seattle did allow, it was the 5th best matchup for wide receiver targets last season. And while that's not like necessarily sticky year over year, would you rather see that they were the 5th best matchup or the 5th worst matchup for wide receiver targets? You'd still rather they've been the 5th best matchup last season. So again, 100 yards rushing for Ken Walker, 100 yards receiving for Ricky Pearsall, 50x with 0 boost if that hits. And again, just to go back on the Ken Walker part of this, like, I think that the San Fran defense is going to be solid this season, but they're very young. And so when we attack them, we'd like to do it early in the season. And the scheme for Seattle is to run the ball. They're going to run the ball early and often. It's a scheme that fits the running style of Ken Walker. So I really think he's going to have some great games. He's an explosive player. So when he hits that hole, he is gone for a touchdown. Those are the guys we want to be pushing for 100 yards on, because when they hit, it's very likely that they really hit, right? They're not, they just squeak over. We want that explosion, right? We want him to not get 65 rushing yards. We want him to go for 120, because that's really going to push Pearsall to also do the same, but for receiving, obviously. So I like those 2 lineups. I've taken them. Again, you can tail if you want to. I'm going to post them both on X, so you can follow those. Let's rapid fire some solo picks that I like. You can do whatever you want with these ones. First up, we have Tucker Kraft, higher than 37.5 receiving yards. It's up a little. It was 35.5 when I first posted it earlier in the week. And if you have access to the website, you can see all these earlier. So you could have taken Shaheed at 31.5. Now you have to do it at 39.5, but I still like it at 37.5. Detroit at Green Bay, going to be one of the better games of the week. Tucker Kraft has been just crushing it all summer long. Really does seem like he and Golden are going to be the focal point of this Green Bay passing attack all season. But again, it's week 1 for Golden. It's the first game of his career. There's certainly a chance that he has a great year, but he's less involved than we're envisioning in his first game. That's going to help the target share of Kraft. I'm also worried about Jaden Reed's foot injury. You have Watson obviously not playing yet this season, and the Lions aren't exactly going to lay a goose egg on the other side. So unless Josh Jacobs just rips the Lions apart, they're probably going to need Kraft in this one. So, him pushing into the upper 30s for receiving yards, I think that feels very doable. Another solo pick I like is actually from tonight's game. That's Marquise Brown, lower than 3.5 receptions. I genuinely think, we don't know, but I think Tyquan Thornton is going to play more than people think. Maybe he doesn't go out there and has a 60% snap share, but he's going to mix in and he's going to get some usage. I think people are kind of expecting Marquise to pretty much play every snap, and I don't think that'll be the case. I think 4 receptions is a decent amount to ask for Marquise Brown. He's never been really like a high volume wide receiver, and if you mix in Thornton, you have plenty of running backs you can use. Worthy and Kelce are going to project for more volume than Marquise Brown. I don't know. I just don't really see it happening. I think more than 60% of the time he sees 3 or fewer receptions. Last week, Andy Reid was kind of asked about hey, are you worried that Hollywood straight up didn't play in the preseason? He was injured for most of camp. He said he thinks he should be fine to start the year, but he added that they have other guys that they can rotate in. And that's just the case, right? Even with Jalen Royals, I don't think going to play this week. That doesn't matter that much. They have a ton of wide receivers they can rotate in and out to where they don't need to hyper focus on Marquise Brown. I don't know. It just feels like missing 3 weeks in the middle of camp, not being healthy enough to play in week 3 of the preseason. I think he just might start the season a little bit slower, a lower snap share than people are expecting. And when Tyquan Thornton looked as good as he did all summer long, I just feel like he at least earned snaps early in the season. So I think people are going to overproject him. I like lower than 3.5 receptions. I also like Justin Herbert, higher than 13.5 receiving yards in this Friday game. He was limited by foot injuries last season, so he didn't run the ball as much. Certainly didn't to start the year. Weeks 1 through 6, 5.7 rushing yards per game, went higher than this projection only 1 time in those 6 weeks. But then from week 7 on, he averaged 24.7 rushing yards per game, higher than this projection in 6 of 10 weeks. And in 2 of those 4 that he didn't, they were blowouts. They're going to, implement him in the running game a lot more this season. They've talked about that more, not necessarily like designed runs, but opening up plays that will allow him to scramble at a higher rate and basically like allowing him to. For the first 6 weeks, they straight up like didn't allow him to run the ball. I also doubt this game is a blowout. I doubt that, the Chargers get up by like 3 or 4 scores, run the ball a ton in the second half. Like I do think it's going to be a close game, a really good game, and that Herbert is, not going to be handing the ball off every play, going to drop back at a relatively high rate. And if he does, I think, again, over 60% of the time, Herbert goes higher than 13.5 rushing yards. All right, that'll do it for my favorite picks for week 1. I'll post both lineups I came up with on my X, and so follow me there, not only to tail this one, but if I see anything else worth taking, I will post that. We hit on our first one of the season on Thursday night, and I know Underdog is going to have some promos for week 1, so please take advantage of those. If they're going to give you a 50% profit boost, use it, obviously. Also, if you're not signed up yet for Underdog, now is a great time to do so. New users who sign up with promo code FFA can play just $5 in week 1 and win $50 in bonus cash. If you do that, you can tail at $5 a week our big lineup, the 50X, for 10 weeks using only bonus cash. Fantastic deal for signing up. Plus, if you sign up with promo code FFA, you're going to get my weekly rankings and weekly detailed projections for free for the rest of the season. So you're not going to find a better deal than that in the industry. I highly recommend you take advantage. All right. Good luck to everyone this weekend, both on Underdog and in your season-long matchups as well. But that'll do it for this one. And thank you all for watching.